I tested 10 electric snow shovels to see which one is actually the best. I tested popular brands like DeWalt, Ego, Greenworks, and Snowjo, but I also looked at value brands from Amazon that you definitely haven't heard of. I graded them on overall features, quality, weight, and of course, most importantly, their ability to throw snow. They definitely aren't all the same, and you really don't want to buy the wrong one. Plus, the winner, whichever one you think it is, well, it's not. I've also got the deal breaker feature that I wouldn't even consider not having. Plus, I've got some tips, tricks, and accessories to make your electric shovel work even better. We got to start at the bottom of the pile though, the worst of the worst, and that's DeWalt. It's fairly lightweight, which is good, and it's got an expandable telescoping handle, and that's kind of rare. Adjustable vanes or fins to direct the snow is a must-have, and DeWalt is a very popular tool brand, so where did it all go wrong? For starters, the head is fairly narrow at roughly 10 inches, and while that could be good for detail work, it feels tedious more often than not. Most of the augers in this comparison test are at least a foot wide, and 2 inches can make a big difference. But the biggest issue with the DeWalt is the power, or lack thereof. It's incredibly weak and the motor stalls very easily. Using it feels more like a cheap toy than a serious tool, and it doesn't throw the snow very far at all. The second you go after some of the heavier snow, it just stalls out. If you're new to the channel, my name's Mark, and I made a similar video last year where the DeWalt also finished last. So why bring it back for this year? Lots of DeWalt fans accuse me of using the wrong battery in the tool, and if I used a bigger battery, that would solve the power issue. This is a common misconception, and I'd like to attempt to try to clear this up. The DeWalt is a 20-volt tool, and using a larger capacity battery, like going from a 4 amp hour battery up to a 9 amp hour battery, like I did for testing this year, it doesn't change that. The voltage is the push or the power. The amp hour capacity is how long it'll run. I'm a bit of a car guy, so think of voltage as the horsepower of the engine. Think of amp hours as the size of the fuel tank. If you put a larger fuel tank in a car, does it change the horsepower of the engine? Of course not. It just allows the car to run for a longer period of time. Also, don't think of voltage as the end-all be-all to the power of a tool. Just like there are many V6 engines that make more power than V8s, you can also have a lower voltage tool perform better than a higher voltage tool. Keep that in mind for the rest of this video. But back to DeWalt. I bought the biggest battery I could fit in there, a premium, high-end 9 amp hour flex bolt battery. And guess what? It changed nothing, performed the exact same, and the DeWalt finished last 2 years in a row. Do not buy this tool. It is complete shite. That's British for poop. And you thought you wouldn't learn anything today. Lightfully isn't dead last, but pretty close, possibly even a tie with DeWalt. Last year, I thought this tool was great. It was actually my top pick. It wasn't the best at any one thing. It wasn't the most powerful. It wasn't the lightest. It wasn't the cheapest, but it was well-rounded and it earned a top spot because of it. But here's the thing. Lightfully has struggled to keep this tool in stock, and their Amazon listing has a bunch of electric shovels, and it's hard to find this exact model. I'm not sure if they're discontinuing this model or what's going on, but it's incredibly hard to find, and it's hard to recommend tools to people from companies that don't have a clear direction and product roadmap. And for those reasons, I'm not recommending the Lightfully anymore. Lots of people ask about Snowjo last year and why it was missing from my testing. It's a very popular brand, and some people even consider it to be the pioneer of the electric snow shovel segment. Well, I've got one for this year, and I understand why people like it. It's a smaller tool in height, but that also means that it's fairly lightweight and maneuverable. At almost a full foot shorter than the Ego, the Snowjo was one of the shortest tools in the test. It's one of the few in the test that features an ergonomic bent handle, and it does seem to keep the user more upright. The secondary handle is adjustable, so that combined with the lightweight frame and bent shaft really make this tool fairly comfortable to hold and operate, especially for shorter people. I'm over 6 feet tall, so a tad short for this tall drink of water, but a lot of people are gonna love this form factor. It uses a 24-volt, 4 amp hour battery, and if you have other Snowjo or Sunjo summer tools, yes, they use the same batteries, and that's a huge win. Pistol grip handle is a great design choice for really being able to ram it into the snow piles, but the safety button could use a little bit of work. It's a flush-mounted slide-style button that can be hard to press when wearing gloves, and the ridges on the button can actually give you a blister fairly easily if you aren't wearing gloves. If you haven't used one of these electric shovels before, you'll be turning it on and off quite a bit. So that safety button on the top, that has to be pushed every time you want to activate the auger. So while it seems like a really petty thing to complain about, it's also annoying at the same time. Throwing snow was decent, nothing crazy and mid-range as far as power goes. Given the small size of the tool though, it packs a decent punch for the power to weight ratio. I'm clearing some fairly mild snow and it has no problem with that, but that's a gimme. Torture testing at an icy snowbank was actually pretty good. You can chip away at piles of deep snow and eventually you just cut right through them. Check out this big chunk I was able to take out of this pile. That's really not bad. Deeper snow wasn't much of a problem either, and working alongside the abandoned pool, I was able to make good progress and give this thing a moderate workout. In some areas, I was even taking on full auger housing depths of snow, and that was pretty cool to see it get after some of the deeper stuff. There's two things that I didn't like though, and they're kind of big, so here we go. Number one, no adjustable vanes to direct the snow and steer it away from things. Now, some people are going to argue that you can angle the tool, kind of hold it offset and angle the snow that way. And that's true, you technically can, but it's awkward to do. And if you're up against a house or something, then you really can't angle it. So blowing straight forward is the only option, which is not great. The second thing is that it's fairly easy to stall in deeper snow if you're pushing too aggressively. Each tool tested has different torque allowances before the motor stalls out to protect itself. And I found the Snow Joe to be on the conservative side of this. Sometimes this is a thermal limit of the motor, like when it's working really hard and reaches an internal temp, it shuts off to prevent damage. Sometimes this is a torque sensor that reads how much torque is getting delivered to the auger based on the resistance from the snow. And if there's too much torque, it just says, yeah, that's a no for me, dog, and shuts things down immediately. When you hit the safety shutoff, it's generally very easy to restart and keep going. So it's not a huge deal, it's just more of an annoyance than anything. On the clips of me going after some of the heavier snow, and especially the snow pile, that required many stops and starts to really get through it. So no directional control for the ejected snow combined with a fairly easy to hit threshold for shutoff had this Snow Joe finishing towards the bottom of the list. The moderate power from the Snow Joe is a good lead-in for my next electric shovel, the Wild Badger. I love the name and the power is plentiful with this one. It's an absolute beast. At first turn on, the auger starts spinning and you're like, okay, cool, but it takes maybe a second to reach full RPM, and then it's like, holy crap. This thing packs a punch, one of the most powerful shovels in the group, and it can handle deep snow, plow ridges, and of course, everything in between. Snow throwing is its specialty, and the overall distance this thing is capable of flinging snow is impressive. Wild Badger as a company is pretty legit too. They sell a lot on Amazon, but they're also carried by some big retailers like Lowe's and Walmart. Okay, relax, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. It's short, generally speaking. This is an ergonomic thing that won't apply to everyone, but if a tool doesn't fit you, well, that's a problem. You can see when I'm using it that I'm slightly hunched over. That starts to get really uncomfortable pretty quickly. It also lacks adjustability to control all that snow you'll be shooting all over the place. The auger housing is smooth and you can't change the direction of deflection with this model, so you're stuck throwing the snow straight out in front of you. Not ideal. Think of this electric shovel as very similar to the Snow Joe with more power and much less likely to stall out. Greenworks has two shovels in my test this year, and this is another bent shaft design with ergonomics in mind. And while I do find it comfortable to use because of that, I think length and weight of the tool are overall more important. This is an 80-volt tool and the power is really nice, but the auger RPM is fairly tame, which seems to make it quieter. The Wild Badger that we just talked about, that sounded powerful, whereas the Greenworks is more subtle, but the power is still there. Here I'm plowing through this snowbank with ease and taking it all the way down to the grass and getting into the salad. It throws snow plenty far too, and you see me just launching this stuff 20 feet out into the yard. Still a bottom 5 finisher though, so what's up with that? Well, if you're a perceptive person, you've started to notice a pattern, and we gotta talk about it. It's the adjustable vanes to direct the snow, and this Greenworks shovel doesn't have it. This is far and away the most important feature with these tools, and I really would not consider getting one that didn't have a way to aim the snow being discharged. We're all familiar with traditional snowblowers, right? Where they have the adjustable chute to change the direction. Imagine if they didn't have that and the only option was to launch the snow directly in front of you, and how much that would suck. Same thing with these shovels. There's tons of scenarios that you're not going to want to throw the snow straight out in front of you, and without those directional vanes, you don't get that control. If you're clearing a deck, part of that deck will be up against the house, and you'll need to work in tight and get the snow away from the house. If you're clearing a sidewalk, you don't want to throw the snow right in front of you, so you just have to clear it again as you made forward progress. Yet, no thanks. There's just too many use cases where adjustable vanes are essential, and it's a common enough feature that it's easy to find, so My advice as we head into the top 5 here is buy one that has that adjustability. These top 5 are in the upper half for a reason, and it's all because of that one feature. Representing the value end of the spectrum within the adjustable vanes option of tools is the Garvee, a brand I had never heard of. Right after unboxing, I had my doubts because it felt lightweight and overall it just felt cheap. And it kinda is. Simple construction, smaller auger head design, generic looking 20-volt batteries with a nondescript generic charger, and basic branding with stickers that started peeling after the first use. But there's a few things to get excited about as well, and that includes a pistol grip design that I really like, and it has a safety switch that can be accessed from both sides, whether you're right or left-handed. The other standout feature is a secondary handle that not only slides up and down, but also has a tilt adjustment to actually change the angle of how it meets your hand. Ergonomics are important, and while this tool is a bit on the shorter side, the adjustability of the lower handle almost makes up for it. It does have the all-important adjustable vanes, but you can see they are fairly small and short. They work okay, and it's better than nothing, but overall, they aren't as effective as some of the other models. Performance-wise, it's pretty average, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. The lighter duty tools tend to be smaller and lighter weight, and if your main goal is to clear stairs, they might be a really good fit. I'm doing this front walkway and it gets tight with the trees and the steps and all. This shovel worked really well for this task. Power is fairly minimal and there's nothing impressive there. It throws the snow fine, but it's not launching at 30 feet or anything like that. Yes, it's on the budget end of the spectrum and it's not big on power, but it's lightweight, has some nice ergonomic adjustments, and it seemed to clear the snow fairly well. So solid performance from the Garvee. Hey, you want to see the weirdest tool in this whole test? This beast from Senix is a strange hybrid between shovel and snowblower. It's actually got wheels. The business end features a 15-inch wide auger, by far the widest in the test. Adjustable deflection vanes, of course, and the whole thing is powered by a huge 60-volt, 6-amp-hour battery that lives in the auger housing, which is also unique to this tool. All the others have their battery up in the handle. More on that in a second. Then there's the wheels. Check them out. They act to carry the weight of the tool and allow for a quick pivots and clean passes. Very interesting and different from the rest of the shovels in this test. The handle is a pistol grip design, which I love, and a pass-through safety trigger makes it operational for both righties and lefties alike. Eco mode is a slower auger speed to reduce battery consumption, but I like running it wide open, and the battery status light is right there too, so you can always look and see how you're doing. The telescoping handle is almost not worth mentioning because it only moves a little bit each way, but sometimes that can make a big difference. The secondary handle is adjustable as well, and hey, look at that. We get a headlamp too. Okay, so this thing is super weird and pretty different from all the other tools in the test, but how does it perform? It absolutely rips. The Senix is possibly the most powerful tool in the test, and it ejects snow more than 30 feet. The action is totally different too. Since the battery is in the head of the tool, you don't really pick it up and carry it. It's far too heavy and off balance for that. Instead, you use the built-in wheels to roll it back and forth, and it's more like vacuuming carpet or something. If the snow isn't too deep, one-handed vacuuming is definitely possible, and not having to pick up and hold the tool is really nice, and the weight of the assembly goes unnoticed. The directional vanes are clutch and work beautifully, and you can see how dramatically different the directions are when viewing from the back. I'm working alongside the abandoned pool again, and you can see how important this feature really is if you need to steer snow away from your house or the street or something. Oh, and the headlight is actually pretty cool, and with the sun setting so early in the wintertime, I find that I do a lot of snow clearing in the dark, so that's kind of nice. The snow launching is awesome, but it throws it up fairly high and far, and sometimes that could be a problem if you're working in a tighter area. You can't really adjust the deflection angle, so it always shoots almost straight up, and that's kind of annoying. The other thing to note is that it really is a shovel snowblower hybrid, and that makes it good at some things, but terrible at others. I generally don't recommend these electric shovels for clearing large open areas like driveways because the auger heads are too narrow and it feels a little tedious. With the Senix, you get a wider head plus the addition of wheels, and if you had a small area to do like a single car driveway and a sidewalk or something, this tool could actually be your main snow removal tool. It is heavy though, and while it rolls on wheels, this thing would be terrible for stairs on a front walk or a deck or something like that. I'm not really sure what to make of this shovel snowblower hybrid, but it's definitely cool and it works well, and for the right application, it might be just what you need. All right, we're getting into the top 3, and I just want to say that I like all of these tools really well. They're all top contenders. So while I did technically assign them a ranking, they're all really good and top picks. Making its second appearance on the list is the Greenworks brand. They have a ton of different models, and this one takes everything that I liked about the first one and added adjustable vanes, and you get a winning combination. 80-volt battery just like before, and if you have other 80-volt Greenworks tools, that's a big win right there. This one has a straight shaft versus the ergonomic bent shaft from before, but like I mentioned, I find that the length of the tool to be the ultimate ergonomic deciding factor. Adjustable vanes for directing the snow as mentioned previously, and we get lights. I was really excited for the built-in lights because no other tool in the test has them, but they're basically worthless. They're not very bright at all, and the way the tool naturally sits makes it so the light isn't really pointed at the ground, but more up in the air. Totally garbage feature that makes no difference whatsoever. Dual speed adjustment on the handle, but you know I'm ripping it in full throttle, plus an easy grab trigger that you can operate even if you are wearing thick gloves. I was a little frustrated with the secondary handle placement on this tool because the shaft is kind of a multi-piece design that sort of clamps together, and the connection joint is kind of right in the way where I'd want the handle to be. I had to pick a side for the handle to be on, and being below felt a little bit off. Like I had to kind of stoop down to grab it a bit, but being above it felt too high, and that was even worse. Ergonomics are different for everybody, so it might not be an issue for you. I love the power of this Greenworks shovel, and I was able to go through some really thick snow. Light dustings were obviously not a problem, but digging through a plow pile was fairly easy to do. These plow ridges I'm slicing through aren't just fresh snow either. It's multiple snows plowed into giant piles, and there's layers of ice and refreeze sections, so it's definitely not just a test with light powder. No throw-in is really good. It's got great power, and the tool is also fairly resistant to stalling, which is nice for the end of the driveway plow ridge that everybody loves to deal with. My biggest knock on the Greenworks is weight. It's kind of heavy. But check this out. You remember the Senix tool that we just went over with the wheels on the back? Well, there's aftermarket kits you can get that can make any one of these shovels operate in the same way. It's a set of wheels that bolts onto the shaft of the tool, and there's plenty of adjustments to get it dialed in, and they're fairly universal. How did it work? Actually pretty good. The adjustments take a little bit of time to dial in and get just right, but if you find these tools to be heavy and you want a solution, these kits might just be it. I'll have a link in the description for the exact one that I'm using here, but there's all kinds of different brands and styles to choose from. The number 2 spot belongs to the Works Nitro shovel, and it's powered by 2 20-volt batteries that are side mounted, but they work in series to deliver 40 volts. It's a clever trick that I honestly wish DeWalt utilized. The auger head is nice and wide, and of course it has the critical adjustable vanes to aim the snow. The handle is comfortable and has a large paddle for activation. That makes it easy to use with gloves, and this tool also has 2 speeds if you don't want to rocket all your snow onto your neighbor's driveway. Ergonomics are key, and the secondary handle has plenty of room to slide up or down, but it also pivots to adjust the angle of where it meets your hand. Weight is always a factor, and I found this tool nicely balanced and very manageable, especially given the power output. Power is great. It throws the snow plenty far, and most importantly, it's somewhat hard to stall out. Here's some basic clearing on some lighter stuff, and I almost forgot to mention that it's a bent shaft design too, which, as stated before, I kind of like. It's not a deal breaker either way, but it does help you stand a little bit taller when you're using it. Heavier snow on the abandoned pool deck, maybe 6 to 8 inches, and you can see there's no problem there. I always get questions about plow ridges at the end of driveways, so here we go through layers of snow and a bit of ice towards the bottom. This thing rips, and you can nibble away at a pile of pretty much any size. And the biggest win with these is that I'm obviously holding the weight of the tool, but I'm not bending over and lifting a shovel full of heavy snow with my back. As I'm doing my stall test and trying to overload the motor, I'm basically just ramming it into the pile aggressively and seeing what it can handle. Some people might look at this as abusive testing, but I think it's important to see how tools perform when pushed to their limits, even if you don't think you'd be as mean to your stuff as I am to mine. With the bent shaft design, it's a little bit weaker when you're ramming piles and breaking stuff up. It's hard to show on video, but I could feel the shaft flexing as I'm doing this, and nothing broke or anything like that, but It didn't feel as strong or robust as some of these straight shaft models that just felt stronger overall. Stall threshold isn't terrible, and it can take a lot of abuse before you get there. This shovel has all the features you want combined into a lightweight tool that packs a really solid power punch. Very impressive all around, and definitely deserves to be near the top of the pack. Okay, top spot, what tool did the best and what tool do I recommend the most? Well, you can't have a battery electric outdoor power equipment test without the most popular brand in the space, and it's popular for a reason. Ego is at the top of the heap, but it's not for the reasons that you think. Let me explain. This tool has all the best features, same as all the top finishers on my list. Adjustable vanes are the gotta-have feature, and it's got them. In fact, I've owned this tool the longest, and they were one of the first to the electric shovel space with that feature. This tool has been out for several years, and everyone else is finally catching up. Power is amazing, and it throws snow really far. 2-speed motor as well if you need to not throw snow into orbit, but I always run full throttle for testing purposes. It does everything really well, but the coolest part is that it's part of Ego's powerhead system that takes a powered handle and lets you add a multitude of tools onto the end of it so that you can use it for just about anything. This tool can be a pole saw, a string trimmer, a dethatcher, a brush cutter, just about anything, and it's a great ecosystem to buy into for those reasons. I was talking to a guy at work, and he was thinking about buying one of these shovels, but his hesitation was cost combined with only using it sparingly for a few months out of the year. I'm in Minnesota, if you can't tell by the way that I talk, and yes, we do get snow, but only for about 4 or 5 months out of the year. He was concerned about battery longevity for a tool that sits all summer not being used. And I think he's right. But with a multi-tool system like this, that's not a problem. Yes, it's expensive to buy into, but after that, you're just buying attachments, and it's like you get new tools every time you switch out the end, and you get to use it all year long. That's pretty brilliant. Now, I heard that Milwaukee, one of the most popular tool brands in the space, also has a power head that they call Quick Lock, and that the attachments from Ego can be used with it. Milwaukee doesn't have a teeny tiny snowblower attachment, so a retrofit onto the Quick Lock system is the only way to get an electric shovel within the Milwaukee lineup. The splines are the same between the two systems, but on the Ego, there is a small plastic tab on the bottom that has to be removed. You can use a knife, a file, flush cut, side cutters, whatever you got. Once the plastic is removed, the attachment slides right on. And here we have the Milwaukee Quick Lock Ego shovel, and it's awesome. It rips just the same as the Ego, and at times I thought it might actually work better. This is a great option for Milwaukee guys that already have this system and don't want a dedicated shovel tool. Just get this attachment and you're good to go. Both of these power heads have batteries that clip on in back, easy to use triggers, and adjustable speeds. The Ego has 2 speeds, the Quick Lock has 3. Now, the Ego tool was in my test last year, and the only reason that it didn't win was because of weight. It's super heavy. I promised some attachments that make these shovels better, and I already went over the wheel kits that you can get, but here's something completely different to help with the weight. This is called a Darwin's grip, and it completely changes the ergonomics of a tool like this. Most of the weight with these shovels is in the auger head assembly way down low. This grip attaches to any size shaft and changes the pickup point of the tool so that you can use leverage to work for you and maneuver the tool easy. Once you get things dialed in, the tool feels half as heavy as before, and it makes it much more user-friendly. Watch as I pick up the Ego from the stock secondary handle, and you can see how it slants to one side because of the weight of the auger. Now watch as I pick up the tool with the aftermarket Darwin's grip handle. You can see the tool remain perfectly level and flat because it's now a well-balanced tool, and when you use an extended handle like this, you aren't fighting the weight of the auger, and it feels more easily controlled. And even though it isn't actually lighter, this ergonomic tweak makes a world of difference, I'm telling you. The Greenworks has a really heavy auger head. As you can see here, when I pick it up, it instantly tilts almost completely vertical. The Works Nitro is slightly better, and you might be thinking to yourself, just adjust the secondary handle down so that it's balanced. And you can do that, you're right. I just did it actually. But look what it does to the operator's stance when that handle is so low. You have to bend over and reach way down, and that's counterproductive. The Darwin's grip gives you that balanced tool feel, but it's so long and extends upward, so using it keeps you perfectly upright. I highly recommend a handle extender like the Darwin's grip with these tools, and You can use it all year long on your string trimmer and stuff like that. I'll have the one that I'm using linked for you. It's a bit pricey, but I do like supporting small businesses right here in the United States, but there are cheaper options for you too. So that's everything. The Ego Milwaukee came out on top, not necessarily because it performs so much better than all the others, but rather the fact that it's incredibly versatile and can be a bunch of different tools that you can use all year long. If you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and you actually might like some of my other winter content here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.